Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the premiere episode of The Forum. Before we jump in and start, let me just say this. The Forum is presented by the Full Impact Foundation for conversation, for education, for community engagement. The views shared here are intended to inform us, to challenge us, and to also encourage meaningful dialogue. And this program, I want to make sure and make certain to make clear that this program is not an endorsement or in opposition to any candidate or any political party. And that matters, me saying that matters because over time, our conversations are going to touch on public life. They're going to touch on some policy issues. They're going to touch on some educational issues, some social issues. They're going to touch on some of the conditions that people are living in and the systems that people are trying to survive. So I want to welcome you all this evening to the forum. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead, like, invite, and share. Because as we begin to jump into these things, there are some conversations we keep avoiding. And the longer we avoid those conversations, the more expensive they become. They become more expensive to families, they become more expensive to communities, to schools, and they become more expensive to the lives of the people who need somebody to say something, who need somebody to build something or to do something before the damage continues to get any deeper. So I want to welcome you all. Good evening. So that's where I want to begin tonight, because I want to make sure that you understand that the forum is not just another place to talk, because we got enough opinions floating around that have no action attached to them. So the forum is about us having conversations that matter, that lead to action, because some of these conversations they've been avoided for far too long. And now, since those conversations have been avoided for too long, many people within our society are suffering because of it. So welcome to the forum presented by the Full Impact Foundation, designed to be a public table where we can talk honestly as well as courageously about many of the issues affecting people's lives. And there is no conversation that is going to be off limits. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Darius Jeter, the founder of the Full Impact Foundation. And tonight's conversation is called Conversations We Can't Keep Avoiding. Conversations we can't keep avoiding. And I want to add a second layer to that as well, that says the cost of caring without building. Because it's important for us to understand that. There comes a time where we have to actually stop talking about the work of the ministry and actually begin to do the works of the ministry. And that's what the Full Impact Foundation is about. So we're going to talk about conversations that we can't keep avoiding and the cost of us caring about those issues and those things without actually building something. Because we have to understand that silence is costly. Silence is costly. And caring without building is costly too. And that's where we find ourselves so often stuck at. So tonight, for those of you who are just hopping in and joining us, this is basically an introduction to the Full Impact Foundation tonight, as we have our premiere episode. Conversations we can't keep avoiding and the cost of caring without building. When we talk about caring without building, that's being silent, and silence costs. And we have these mindsets where we care about different issues and we care about different problems and we care about different situations, but we don't build anything to address them. Caring without building anything is costly as well. So that's kind of really where I want to jump into tonight, because so many people care deeply. They're concerned about things deeply, and we see what's happening. And we got opinions about what's happening, and we're disturbed by the direction that many things in our society, and many things in our communities, and many things in our families, we're concerned about the direction that those things happening around us are going in, but that concern never really becomes any action for us to do anything. So we end up leaving people and leaving problems exactly where they are. We have compassion about a lot of things, and compassion is good, but compassion that never becomes a structure to produce anything, that never becomes a structure to change anything, it still leaves people without any help. I know y'all wonder where we going. Where we going? I'm setting it up, so y'all stay with me. I'm setting it up. The same goes about awareness. Now I'm using these words, compassion, awareness, because these are things. These are buzzwords that continue to get thrown out when we're faced with different situations going on in society and going on in families and going on in communities. See, awareness. Many people have an awareness about the things that are going on. We're aware of many things going on around us, but that awareness never really translates or leads us to make any kind of investment to change those negative things that we say that we are aware of. And so, just like compassion, we can be aware of things and don't do anything, and we still leave people in our communities stuck with unmet needs, the very needs that we are compassionate about and that we are aware of. So this first conversation, the first part of this conversation that I want to have tonight is that we need to have tonight is not only about silence, but it's about inaction. It's about underinvestment. And it's about the danger of us caring about problems without building anything strong enough to address those problems. And because we got to understand that silence, we may think that our silence is neutral, but silence isn't always neutral. Just because you don't take a position don't mean that you're not taking a position. Just because you don't speak up don't mean that you're not speaking up. Because see, at times, it's the silence of a thing that protects the things that need to be confronted. It's when we're silent about things that we actually end up giving comfort to those systems or those people who otherwise don't want to be disturbed. So they are fine with our silence. It's the silence that becomes the main reason that wounds get deeper, that many families end up getting weaker, that communities become more fragile. We see all of these things happening in our society, and we stay silent and we don't do anything. And also the reason why many people never reach the resources and have the things that they need to prosper and progress is because we stay silent and we don't speak up about certain things. We don't address certain things to help those situations. So we end up with our silence neglecting and hurting the very people that we say we are compassionate about and the problems they have that we are aware about. And I want to be careful here. Because I'm not saying that we're going somewhere, y'all. Just stick with me. I want to be careful when I say that is because I'm not saying that every person has to speak up about every issue at every moment. Everybody can't address everything. But we also can't keep avoiding the conversations that directly affect people's lives. We got to see where we can help, where we can serve, what we can do. Because when we don't speak up when we need to, when we don't build what we need to, when we don't address what we could address, we can't be surprised when the same problems continue to multiply. When the same problems that we are compassionate about, that we are aware about, that we want somebody to do something about, we can't be surprised when those problems continue to become worse, when they begin to spread. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? So we have this mindset that I don't want to get involved in that. I'm not well versed in that. I don't understand that. So we stay silent. We can't keep pretending that silence is an effective strategy. Because silence doesn't fix problems. Silence doesn't fix what's broken. Silence doesn't doesn't educate our children who are failing in schools. Silence doesn't create opportunities for those who are drowning in situations because they need a help up. It doesn't help people who are trying to escape dangerous situations. Yeah, I'm talking around some things tonight, but we're gonna get right into them pretty soon. Silence, when we talk about silence, we remain silent. We look on the news, we look out in society, we were out down the street, we see all these different things. We see all this stuff play out on the news, we see all this stuff play out in the church, we see all this stuff play out on social media, online, and we remain silent. Silence doesn't help to rebuild broken lives. It doesn't mentor the next generation. We talk about how the next generation is so wicked, how they're so disrespectful, how they don't have this, how they can't do that. But we're not mentoring the next generation. We're talking about it, but we aren't addressing it. Silence can't prepare students for college. It can't create economic opportunities and help people obtain economic empowerment. It can't confront injustices that keep people trapped in circles and cycles. Silence can't fund visions. And some of you have grand visions, have great visions that will be a blessing to the lives of many. But because we remain silent about the things we are compassionate about, the things that we say we are aware of, nobody steps up and helps fund the vision. Nobody steps up to be the hand and feet of Christ to help carry forth the vision because we don't want to get involved. We have to move beyond just the jump and the shout and the excitement of ministry and church and actually begin to do the works of the ministry. Silence doesn't build anything that people can actually use to help themselves or help their community or help their family prosper. Now, silence can keep us comfortable for the moment, but it doesn't move people forward. It doesn't create resources. It doesn't change conditions. It doesn't help us to address the needs that are sitting right in front of many of us. So at some point in time, after we get through shouting and after we get through feeling good and after we get through having our pat on the back and doing our holy dance and all of the things, at some point in time, the conversation has to move. It has to become more than just being concerned. It has to become more than just being aware. It has to become action. It has to become investment into structure and systems that addresses the problems. It has to become something that can actually help people move beyond the moment. Because as we say this, many of us may be trapped in circles and cycles that we can't get out of, that we don't know how to get out of. And somebody is sitting on a structure, on a vision, on a resource that they can't bring to fruition because everybody around them is remaining silent. They're concerned, they're aware, but they're inactive because they are silent. That's part of why the Full Impact Foundation exists. The mission of the Full Impact Foundation is to edify, educate, and empower. And now I'm about to introduce you all to some of the pillars of what it means to edify, educate, and empower when it comes to the Full Impact Foundation. For those of you who don't know, we launched the Full Impact Foundation 10 years ago. 10 years ago this year. And because we have remained stagnant and silent, the Full Impact Foundation has not had the resources to do many of the things and build many of the systems that it was designed and created to address. So we're going to get introduced to this. We're going to get reintroduced to this again tonight through the forum. So as we say, the mission of the Full Impact Foundation is to edify, educate, and empower. What does that mean? To edify means that we want to build people up. We want to strengthen people. We want to restore dignity to people. We want to help people build their confidence. We want to help people have a direction for where their life, a direction in their life where things have tried to tear them down. We want to educate, which means we believe that knowledge matters. We believe that information matters. We believe that access matters. But if you never have understanding, knowledge that those things exist, how can you educate yourself to move to another level, to do something new, to experience something different? Because that means exposure matters. You must be exposed to some things. And the only way you can get exposed to some things is if somebody educates you on the thing. See, people can't walk through doors that they don't know even exist. So we want to take on the responsibility of trying to educate people on many of the doors that they need to know exist so that they can change their life and break the circles and the cycles that they find themselves in. People can't prepare for new opportunities if they've never been shown how to. They can't navigate systems if nobody ever helps them to understand how those systems work. Many of us are locked out of key things within our society because we don't know how the systems of our society work. So we stay in a cycle of brokenness, unable to break out because we don't even know what the door to freedom is. So we want to educate people in ways that gives them access and opportunity that they've been missing, that'll change and bless their lives. And to empower means we're not trying to create people to be dependent upon us. We're trying to help people gain the tools, the support, the resources, the confidence, the pathways, the systems, and the structures, and all the things and all the tools necessary to build for themselves so that they can make the necessary changes in their lives. This is the heart of the foundation. And the forum, what we're doing tonight, is one of the ways that we bring that heart into public conversation. Because we can't solve what we refuse to name. We can't solve what we refuse to address. And we can't build what we refuse to examine and look at and say, hey, we need a system for this. We can't create new systems and new structures and new pathways for people who, while we continue to ignore many of the paths that are blocking them. So we're serious about having an impact, a kingdom impact. Like we always say, we want to have a kingdom impact. If we are serious about having these kingdom impacts, then we have to be willing to look closely at the conditions that make having an impact necessary. It has to be more than a shout. It has to be more than a feel-good moment. It has to be more. It has to be more than just jumping and shouting about the goodness of Jesus and we never take the goodness of Jesus to the people. So we're going to use the forum to look. We're going to use the forum to have those conversations. We're going to use the forum to address the things that need to be built. This is not to shame anybody. So I want people to understand that. Because as we begin to uncover some of the things of certain systems, certain ways of thinking, certain habits, and certain things, it's going to bring some stuff to light. But it's not meant to shame anybody. It's not meant to attack anybody. It's not meant to stir up confusion. We're not here to create any controversy. We're not here to try to get likes and to go viral. That's not what we're here for. We're gonna look at a lot of different things as in the months to come as the forum goes forth, because we have to have these conversations that require us to have the courage to address certain things, to confront certain things. And that courage is going to require us to be honest about what people are facing, about what we're facing. So now we've talked about some stuff in a roundabout way. So now I want to get a little specific regarding some of the main pillars of the Full Impact Foundation. And one of the main pillars of the Full Impact Foundation is education. When the Full Impact Foundation talks about education, we're not talking about some abstract notion of education. We're talking about actually being in a position to empower people to get an education. We're talking about students who have the ability, who have the intelligence, who have the calling, the creativity. They got all this potential, but they still trying to figure out, how am I going to afford to go to school? And because they can't figure that part out, they get locked into a cycle that becomes almost impossible for them to get out of. And this is where we need to have a real conversation, because it's June now. May just passed. Graduation season just passed, and we celebrate students after they graduate high school. We celebrate them. We love the graduation pictures. We love the honor roll announcements. We smile about the cap and the gown and all the tassels and all the things, and we say we say congratulations. We say we're so proud of you. All the things, and we should be proud. We should celebrate them. But if the only time we show up is after they cross the stage, then we got to begin asking ourselves whether we're celebrating achievement without actually helping that person, that young person, build a pathway to success. We celebrated an achievement, but are we helping them develop the pathway to success? Because for many students, college isn't just a question of desire, it's a question of resources, especially in this day and age with the rising cost of what it takes to go to college. Even the technical schools, even the trade schools, application fees, enrollment deposits, books, housing, technology fees, all this housing, all the gap, this gap that everybody is beginning to experience between what financial aid actually covers and then what that student actually has to figure out how they're going to pay for. That's becoming a real barrier. Many of us who grew up and went to college, we got student loan debts, but we didn't have that big gap between what financial aid covered and what we had to come out the pocket to pay, because financial aid covered everything. So now we have students who are in the position where they're trying to pursue a future while their present reality is already too expensive. And we have some of those students who are carrying the pressure of that responsibility quietly. We have families where some students are going to be first generation college students. We have families where the kids have always had the intelligence. They've always had the ability. But there's still families that still have not had a kid to go to college because money has locked them out. So we may have students that come from families where there's the desire, but the resources are limited. And then we have those who are planning to go to college, but they've never had anybody to sit down with them and walk them through what it takes to actually prepare for college, how to apply to college, how to pay for college. And the other thing is to be able to shift their mindset to actually help them see that they belong in that environment. So many kids and so many adults unintentionally self-sabotage themselves because they don't believe they belong in the room. And when you're already trying to wrestle with the mental fight of whether I belong in the room, and then finances is becoming a hurdle to keep you in the room, you definitely begin to think, I can't make it here. I don't belong here. So we got to begin. So encouragement helps. We got to encourage our students. We got to encourage our adults. We got to encourage people to let them know they belong in the room. We got to give them guidance. We got to give them exposure to the financial resources that are there to help them apply for the other grants outside and the other grants and scholarships outside of student aid. But we also got to be willing to say your future is not just worth celebrating, but your future is worth investing in. That's why scholarships matter. Because a scholarship isn't just about paying for tuition. A scholarship becomes a statement to a student that their future is worth investing in. Because it can help close the gap between what's a potential opportunity and what's an actual opportunity that they can take advantage of. It helps students move from a person who's dreaming about having a future to actually walking onto a college campus with the full support behind them that actually makes it a reality. And if we're going to say we care about the next generation and we care about our students and we care about the college education and the trade school education, then we got to do more than just applaud them when they graduate from high school. We got to help create the pathway, the systems, and provide the resources. And that not only helps them get there, but also helps them to stay there. So one of the ways that the Full Impact Foundation is going to do that is through the creation of our Impact Scholarship Award. And this is not just about us giving money away. It's about building a scholarship initiative that helps students take the next step toward college with financial support so that they can have the dignity and the confidence that says, I belong here. We want to develop a support system for our students that helps them to understand that they are not alone. And that our community is not just watching you try to make it, but we're going to actually invest and help you make it. So even now, and I'm gonna give the opportunity, but I want to begin letting you get your mind wrapped around it. As I say this, because I'm inviting those who believe in education and the future of our young people and our people having access to higher education. So it's not just limited to those who can afford it out of pocket for themselves. I want you to begin to consider sowing into the development of our Impact Scholarship Awards. And we're not gonna explode overnight. I would wish we wouldn't, and I would pray that we would, but we're gonna be realistic. We may not explode overnight, but we can develop to the point where we can start by issuing one-time scholarships. But our ultimate goal is to grow our scholarship capacity to begin fully funding the entire cost of the recipient's education until they receive their degree. We don't want to just pay for the first semester and then they got to figure it out the next semester. We want to get to the place where we can fund their entire college education. Because we're not just trying to celebrate students after they make it. We're trying to help them make it. So start considering that. Your support can help build a scholarship award that opens doors, that removes barriers, that helps students take that next step toward their future. And so as you begin to ponder that, and as that thought begins to push back on you, as I know it has in many minds, this is exactly what I mean when I say silence is costly. But caring without building and investing is also costly. Because we can say all day long we care about our students. But if we never build anything that helps our students get there, then the very thing we care about still leaves them trying to figure it out by themselves. And now they're forced into that same financial aid debt that we fell into, that we're still trying to pay back. So begin considering that. And I'm going to give an opportunity to sow at the end. But another pillar that I want to introduce to you about from the Full Impact Foundation is our Safe Haven initiative, which requires us to address the reality of domestic violence. Because this is a conversation too many people avoid because it's painful, it's complicated, it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's close to home. It may be close to home to somebody in our family, in the church, somebody we work with, somebody who's in our friend group, who in our circle. They got all smiles in public while they're suffering in private. And when the Full Impact Foundation talks about domestic violence support, we're talking about one of the most painful realities affecting many homes and families in our society. And it's not that it's overlooked. It's that everybody's real quiet about it. It's that nobody wants to get involved with it. Well, that's their business. But that's going on with them. Well, you know that whatever going on between that man and his woman, that's their issue. Too many people are suffering behind closed doors while the public continues to see a smile or relationship status on social media. The church outfit, you know, all the things. We see the social media posted pictures. We see all the things that they want us to see, but they're suffering in silence at home. But some of us, you see the black eyes. You see the bruises. You hear the stories. And one of the most dangerous assumptions that people make is thinking that leaving is just simple. But once you get tired of it, she can just leave. Well, you get tired of somebody hitting you upside the head, you will leave. We got to understand that leaving an abusive marriage or leaving an abusive relationship is not always simple. Because people will say, why didn't they just leave? But that's a shallow question for what this situation really requires. Because we got to think about this. Leaving and leaving safely are two different things. Because leaving safely can involve developing a safety plan. It can require the need to secure housing. Where you gonna go? Protecting your children, navigating finances, because sometimes abuse isn't just physical, sometimes it's financial. Dealing with fear. Some people are so miswired in the brain because of the relationship that they are afraid to speak. They're afraid to do. The emotional manipulation that many go through, the legal questions that trying to leave a marriage with a kid, the problems that arise from that. Transportation issues. I want to leave, where I'm going to go and how am I going to get there? And what's going to happen next? That's a real fear. Are they going to find me? What's going to happen if they find me? Are they going to hurt other people that I know trying to find me? So a person may not be staying because they want to stay. They may be staying because they don't know how to leave safely. Because they've been isolated. They've been convinced that, some of them have been convinced that nobody's going to believe them. They're being controlled financially. They don't have any authority over the finances. They're only allowed to spend what they're given, and they're only given enough to do what they have been told to do with it. Some people stay because there are threats against their children. There are threats against their family. There are threats against their coworkers. There are threats against their reputation. Leaving can be dangerous. It can be dangerous in ways that the person who's saying just leave don't even understand. So if our only answer is just leave, but there's no safe pathway, there's no support, there's no plan, there's no place to go, there's no resources to help rebuild, then we haven't really provided an answer. We just issued an already known statement that gives false hope. I know I can just leave, but where I'm gonna go? How I'm gonna get there? How I'm gonna eat? What clothes I'm gonna wear? They know where I work. They're gonna show up and cause a scene. And people don't just need an escape plan from danger. They also need help transitioning into a more stable life. They need security. They need wise support. They need responsible systems to help them rebuild their life. And some of them need to have their minds reconditioned. They have to know that their life is worth more than just surviving. This is why the Full Impact Foundation wants to create the Safe Haven program that's designed to provide emergency housing assistance, counseling services, job placement support, relocation assistance, and any and all other resources that's necessary to not only help those who are ready to get out of dangerous domestic situations, but provide the resources and tools that can help them rebuild their lives. And when I say emergency housing assistance, I don't just mean some group home or something like that. The vision of the Full Impact Foundation is to already have houses and homes leased or owned, apartment spaces leased and owned. All these places are already there. So when a person says, I'm ready to leave, we automatically have a place for them to go that moment. We're not going to be trying to get ready. We're going to already be ready. Now, I want to be clear for those who are listening tonight. We don't have these resources in place at the moment. But what we're saying is that the Full Impact Foundation's goal is to build resources and partnerships that can help us to provide these support systems for those who need to move from danger to stability. And I want to be clear with that because there may be somebody listening tonight who may listen later, who may be in this position. We're not in a position to help now. And that feels bad and hurtful to say. And I'm sure that it's painful for you to hear the possibility of hope, but no hope. But this is why support matters. This is another place where support matters. If we believe people should have safe pathways out of danger, then we have to help build those pathways. Survivors and people in domestic violence situations, that they deserve more than just our sympathy and our empathy. They need our resources to exist so we can help them move to safety, so that we can help them have stability, so that we can help them restore their dignity. So when we start talking about sowing into the vision, sowing to build the resources, your giving helps to move this work from vision to actually building a structure so that we can have the kind of support that can help somebody rebuild. Because again, we got to understand that caring without building becomes what? It becomes expensive. Because the problem only gets deeper and it only gets worse. It's expensive when a person finally gets the courage to leave, but there's nowhere to go. It's expensive when somebody, they finally tell the truth, but then there's nobody to help. When we say, my prayers, which I'm gonna pray for you, but then there's no counseling, there's no safe place, there's no transportation, there's no job support, there's no relocation assistance, there's no bridge to a better life. That's why we can't keep avoiding these conversations. Because if we don't have the conversations, we can't strategize about the systems and support we need to build to help. The third pillar I'm going to introduce you all to tonight from the Full Impact Foundation is economic empowerment. This one matters because financially, People are stressed out and tired. And many of you listening might be one of the ones, or many of the ones, who are stressed out and tired. We have people that are working, they're trying, they're budgeting, they're praying, they're cutting costs, they're going without, they're showing up to work, they're showing up to different things, but the cost of living just keeps increasing. It keeps rising. But the pay hadn't kept pace. It don't go up. It's staying the same. And so many families are carrying this pressure. And we got to be honest about that. We talk about people getting in debt, but sometimes people are getting in debt because it's not because they're out buying TVs and buying cars and buying things that don't make no sense. A lot of people are going in debt because they're trying to buy necessities. They got to put food on the table for kids, so they got to go swipe the credit card. The kids are growing. They need more shoes. They feet can't fit the shoes no more. They got to go swipe the credit card. They got to go take out a payday loan. Because we got to be real. Some people were taught that if you just worked hard, if you just stayed loyal to the job you had, if you waited around for the raise, if you just saved a little bit, if you planned for your retirement, and everything was going to work out. Now that path, it might still work for some people, but for most people, it ain't working. The promise of Social Security that they promised our grandparents and our parents, it's not going to be a reality soon. We have our retirement accounts, our 401ks. We got to be realistic about how these things work. This is where we have to become educated and understand how systems work. It only allows you to put a certain amount of money in it each year, and that's not enough to keep pace with what you're going to need for retirement. So we have to begin really asking ourselves, is the system actually designed for me to be able to retire? No, it's not. Housing's going up, groceries going up, insurance costs rising, child care rising, gas going up, the medical expenses going up, education going up. All these things have become more expensive. And in the middle of all of that, in the middle of that reality, people are still trying to figure out how they're going to build a stable life right now while still trying to plan for the future. And they'll sit back and they'll say, well, you invest 10% of your pay into your retirement, you'll be good. Oh, yeah, that sounds good, but I can't put 10% of my pay for tomorrow when I need it today. So when the foundation talks about economic empowerment, we're not just talking about business ownership. We are, but that's not just it. Entrepreneurship matters, but economic empowerment is bigger than just starting a business. It's about helping people understand money and how to use it. It's about helping people understand ownership, understanding investing, credit, debit, budgeting, saving, stewardship, assets, and liabilities. All these things that determine income and wealth. We have to become educated on how this system works. Too many people are dependent on the promise of retirement from systems that they don't even control, from employment sources that never fully creates that's never going to fully create the financial reality that they're hoping for when it comes time for retirement. Working matters, yes. Having a job matters, yes. But work alone doesn't always create financial freedom. It's good to get a paycheck. A paycheck helps you to survive, but ownership can help people build. Even if you got to pool together with other people so that y'all can build something together. But here's the thing, many people want to pursue that path, but they don't have the support, the structure, or the wisdom, or the education, or the knowledge to move forward with it. That's why entrepreneurship, financial education, investing, and ownership matter, and getting the understanding of how it works matters. Entrepreneurship matters because people need to understand how to create value, solve problems, serve a market, and build something that can produce beyond just a paycheck. We got the buzzword of generational wealth. Well, you can create generational wealth by creating a generational business. But entrepreneurship without financial education still leaves people vulnerable. How many businesses are started and fail because the money part is not understood? Because you can start a business and still not understand pricing and taxes and profit and cash flow and debt and credit and how to reinvest in the business wisely and how to pay yourself. So you could have had a good business that went out of business because you didn't understand business. Financial education matters because people can't manage what they've never been taught to understand. A lot of people have brilliant business ideas, but it's not going to be successful because they don't understand finances. They don't have a financial education. Because if nobody ever taught you how interest works, how credit scores affect your options, and how debt can trap you, and how budgeting creates discipline, how debt can trap you, how saving can give you a cushion, how investing is not a microwave, it builds over time, then guess what? You're going to be working hard and still losing ground. These are the things that matter. And let me be clear. Everybody don't need to quit their job tomorrow and start a business. That's not what I'm saying. But people do need exposure to ownership, to education about how money works, how understanding how entrepreneurship works and what it really means to be an entrepreneur. Because when the community, because what we have to understand, we always talking about how dollars leave our community. Let's be specific. We always talk about how money leaves the Black community, how the Black community can be an economic engine that drives the economy, but the money always leaves our community. When we don't understand, when a community doesn't understand ownership, has no access to capital, has no financial education and no business training and no mentorship to help you understand these things, and no local services are being built from within that community, then guess what? Money is going to continue to keep leaving the community while the community continues to need things on the inside of the community. So what's going to happen? People from outside of the community are going to come build businesses inside of the community, take your money and leave it and take it right back outside of the community. This is how we have communities that are run down. Why they're run down? Because it's not our stuff. We place no value on it. But if we start building our own things, that's when our communities begin to become these beautiful pieces of places of what they're supposed to be. That's a hard conversation that we often avoid having. So we can't keep talking about struggling communities without talking about ownership. And we can't keep talking about poverty without talking about having financial education. And we can't keep telling people just to work harder without giving them the tools to actually build smarter. So the Full Impact Foundation wants to develop an economic empowerment program that can teach people entrepreneurship, that can teach people financial education, that can teach people all these different aspects so that you can understand the ins and outs of finances and understand how the financial system works so that you can understand how to make it work for you. Because economic empowerment is not just about making more money. It's about learning how to build. It's about learning how to help people build the capacity to create other options and opportunities, not only for themselves, but for other people in the community too. Because if we're all building together, we're gonna continue. We can only get stronger. And that's why this part of the forum matters. Because some conversations require us to stop repeating what sounds inspirational and start asking what's actually functioning. And financially speaking, finances is not functioning within many of our communities. It's not functioning properly within many of our homes. So there has to be a mindset shift. There has to be some education imparted. We have to begin encouraging each other. We also need to know we got to know what people need. We got to know what people need to be exposed to so that we can build strategies and relationships to help them build, to help them grow. I'm about through with y'all for tonight, but I want to give you this last little piece, this last little pillar about the foundation, which is advocacy, which is why we had our disclaimer at the beginning that we're not endorsing or supporting any political party or candidate. Because where wrong is wrong, we speak on it. Where right is right, we'll speak about it, because we're going to talk about policies at times. Advocacy is the last pillar of the Full Impact Foundation that I want to introduce you to tonight. Because when we talk about advocacy, we're talking about the need to give attention to issues affecting people's lives before those issues become major crises that can no longer be ignored. Because see, once they become major crises that can no longer be ignored, guess what happens? A political spin gets put on it. So public decisions, school board decisions, housing conditions, employment realities, safety concerns, access to resources, and the way systems respond or even fail to respond to the everyday needs of people, to real people, all these things have to be addressed. Because advocacy is not just about protesting. It's not just about protesting. Protesting is the last step. Advocacy is about paying attention to the policies and the politics that's going on around us. It's about speaking out when remaining silent would be easier. It means showing up in rooms and sitting down at tables where the decisions are being made so that your voice can be heard. And it's also about taking the time to think things through so that you can begin asking the question, who's being affected by these policies and these decisions that are being made? How is it affecting them? Who's being overlooked? Who's being helped? And who's being left to carry that burden alone? And we can't just ask those questions. But we also got to begin asking, what can I do about it? What can I do about it? Because we can't complain about what's going on in the school if we never go to the school board meetings. We can't complain about what our local government is doing if we never go sit at the city council meetings, if we never go to the county commissioner meetings, if we never go to the state representative and the state senator meetings. We sit back and complain, but do we actually know the nuances of the policies? This is where the forum becomes important, because it gives us a place to bring these issues to the table in a way that connects conversation not only to a mission, but make that mission become an action so that we can do something about it. So advocacy is not just about protesting. We got to go sit at the table first. Protesting is the last thing. When we've spoken and not been heard, when we've shown up and been dismissed, when we put hands and feet to work and it's still being rebuffed, that's when it's time to protest. So we need these places and these spaces where people can think out loud, ask the questions, and debate the issues, wrestle with real life issues and real life questions so that we can learn to ask better questions. Learn from guests that we're going to eventually bring on. So we can hear from people with experience. So that so those conversations can begin to connect to some practical work. Okay, we've talked about this. Now, what can we do? So these are some of the kinds of areas that the Full Impact Foundation is concerned about. Strengthening communities and developing the support systems for people who are trying to carry, who are trying to build, who are trying to rebuild, who are trying to grow, who are trying to move forward. That's what the Full Impact Foundation is trying to do. Now, I know that some of the issues and resources that I mentioned tonight are the exact thing that somebody listening or who gonna listen later might be in need of. So again, I want to say, I'm not claiming tonight that these programs are fully built or fully funded or fully operational in any way. What I am saying is that our vision is a real vision that we have had for the past 10 years. Our mission is a serious mission that we have had for the past 10 years. But now it's time for the work to be done. So that brings me to the last thing I want to talk to y'all about, and then I'm going to get out your hair. The last hard truth of tonight's conversation. And that is that people often say they care about change until change requires an investment. Caring about people sounds good, but scholarships require funding. Being concerned about domestic violence and domestic violence survivors, it sounds compassionate, but having the ability to develop the support systems that they need requires funding. All the things we mentioned tonight, they require resources. This is where we have to start pretending that thoughts and prayers alone are enough. Well, my thoughts and prayers are wouldn't. Okay, that alone is not enough. Now, I believe in the power of prayer, but the Bible says faith without works is dead. When we pray, we are praying faith prayers, which means we are praying on what we believe. And if we believe it's going to happen, that means we have to act in a way. We have to act on what we believe. So when we pray for students, but never support the development of educational pathways, then something is missing. If I'm going to pray about your domestic violence situation, but never build a support system to help you get out of it, then something is missing. And we praying for communities to be strengthened, but we never invest in the empowerment for the community to be strengthened. When we're doing that, something is missing. And when we pray for change, we got to ask, are we really praying for transformation, or are we just hiding behind religious language? Because thoughts and prayers alone don't build programs. They don't provide resources. They don't cover operational costs and expenses. They don't sustain long-term progress. But all of these things that we're talking about, this is what doing the work of the ministry looks like. So if we believe that the work matters, we got to invest in the work. Because we never know if one day is going to be the day that we may need the resources of the work. That's important. One day you may be in the very position to need the resources that we're trying to build. So we can't have the mindset that the work is for somebody else to do. That domestic violence support is for somebody else. That's only for somebody else's family. Somebody else's family need that. Economic empowerment, that's for somebody else's family. We never know if we gonna need the resources of the work, because life has the way of reminding us that the resources we fail to build today may be the very resources that we need for ourselves tomorrow. So we got to invest in the work. Now, I understand that everybody can't give the same amount or give the same support in the same way. but everybody can do something to move beyond just agreeing and applauding and saying that sounds good. Because we got to move beyond saying that sounds good and somebody should do something. Because those are the things we say, oh, that sounds good. Or somebody should do something about that. At some point in time, we got to become that somebody who steps up to help build what we say we believe in. Because that's a part of what makes silence and inaction so expensive, like we talked about at the beginning. When people see these problems and remain silent, that problem only gets deeper. And when people remain inactive, the opportunity to do something gets missed. So when we fail to invest in these visions to build these systems, then guess what? The vision stays underdeveloped or undeveloped. And then we end up asking, well, why ain't nothing happen? Why ain't nothing changing? Why ain't nobody doing nothing? So we got to understand that sometimes things are not changing because we keep praying for the things that we're not willing to fund. When we need to be some of the people who step up and become the hands and feet of Christ to make some things happen too. So this is why our language is conversations that matter and nothing is off limits, because a meaningful conversation should awaken awareness within us. It should give us the clarity of what's actually at stake. There is a woman being beaten right now who wants nothing more than to leave, but she can't because she has nowhere to go. There is a student right now who has gotten accepted into their dream school, but they can't go this fall because they do not have the money to get there. Too many public conversations have become about performance because people are always trying. People are not trying to understand the problem. They're more interested in trying to deny accountability for their role in the problem, or they're trying to prove that somebody else's point is wrong. But the forum is not being built on performance. It's being built on making an impact. So I'm going to invite you all tonight before we get ready to get out of here. For those who would like to sow into the Full Impact Foundation, you can do so. You can go to our website at fullimpactfoundation.org, or you can cash app it to us at $ Full Impact Foundation to begin us having the resources we need to build the Impact Scholarship Award and the Safe Haven Initiative. Amen. Silence has a cost and inaction has consequences. And we say we want to make an impact in people's lives, we got to understand that impact requires investment. Amen. I'm going to put those links, those ways to give in the chat as well for those who are viewing on Facebook and YouTube. I'm going to put it in the chat so you can click those links once we log off. Amen. If you have not done so, please follow us on social media. You can like our Facebook page, Full Impact Foundation, and our YouTube page. Subscribe to our YouTube page, Full Impact Foundation. I'm putting those links in the chat as well. I want to thank you all for taking the time to show up tonight for our premiere episode of the Forum. The Forum. The Full Impact Foundation, for those who are giving, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So your contributions are tax deductible as allowed by law. And whether your gift is large or small, whatever, it does not matter. But this is how impact begins to take shape. And not only do we need the financial resources, but we also need the people to step up and get involved to find out how I can be a support. What can I do to help? Amen. So as we get ready to close out this first episode, I want you to share the broadcast, like, invite, subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook pages, and most importantly, don't let the conversation end when the broadcast ends. Have these conversations in your circle, because if all we do is just watch and nod and move on, then we have missed the point. As we go forward, we will have a special guest to come on to talk about different issues. We'll have more in-depth conversations about specific issues going forward. So be on the lookout for the forum discussions once a month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Amen. Once a month, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to have the promos out well before, so you'll know the dates and be ready for that and what that conversation topic is going to be. So again, before we close, there are some conversations that we keep avoiding, as we said at the beginning. And the longer we avoid them, the more expensive they become. But tonight, with the forum, we are opening the table to have these conversations that matter, and no conversation is off limits. So the conversations have started. I'm Dr. Darius Jeter, and I thank you all for joining us tonight for the premiere episode of The Forum, presented by the Full Impact Foundation. You all be blessed. Have a great night, and I will see you at the next forum.